Hey guys, just a reminder, this is not official medical advice. For such, please seek an appointment with a licensed medical provider.
Hi, this is Dr. Tom Rogers coming to you with a weekly podcast of the Common Sense MD. Today I have a special guest. He's actually works with us every week. Lucas Schmidt, wonderful actor, wonderful person, athlete, nutritionist, exercise physiologist, piano player. He does everything. If you've ever seen him at the Jonesboro Playhouse, you'll be amazed at his acting ability. Personally, I think you should be on Broadway. I don't know what you're doing around here, really.
Oh, I
really
like
can't
I like the
believe
people.
I really
and I like
can't
the
believe
area.
you live around here and could be on Broadway. But if you ever get a chance to see his shows, it's really unbelievable for this. And so is the Jonesboro Playhouse. I mean, I'm
thank you.
just flabbergasted every time I go to a play there, which is very often.
We got a good one running right now. I'm not in it, but you
Bright
should still
Star?
see it. Bright Star. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's. I think
we're
Andy's
going.
coming. Oh, you are?
We're going. Yeah.
Okay, you'll be very moved and impressed.
Yeah, yeah.
Running that next 3 weeks, I think.
I'm always impressed with that, especially if you're always in the lead play, whether you're playing Dr. Frankenstein, not Frankenstein,
Frankenstein.
Yeah, or whatever. But you played some wonderful roles over there, and I'm super excited. Now, we've known each other for several years because, I don't know, I guess Andy introduced me to you through the Playhouse.
Yeah.
And you told me that you went and got a certification in nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
So we started talking, and in my practice at Performance Medicine, of course, a lot of it's nutritionally based. The main things I do in my practice are get people to lose weight, fight metabolic syndrome, and hormonal analysis and things like that. But I've never found a nutritionist that I really believe knew what they were doing until I met you, to be honest with you.
Oh, well, thank you.
You're one out of many, the only that I've ever really trusted to give me advice with personally and with my patients. So what I decided to do today, because you only work on Wednesdays in my Johnson City clinic and I'm in Kingsport working, was I'm off this week, so I wanted to get an official consultation with you.
Yeah.
Because I have a couple of goals as far as my nutrition goes, and really, you just now sat down with me for an hour, had your computer out, you're writing up a detailed program for me that will help me, I know. Not only with what I eat, what I put in my mouth, but also how I exercise.
Yeah.
Because everything plays a part.
Yeah.
And you reach really my goals as a 70-year-old guy, and you always start out with our InBody machine. Yeah. I got a pretty decent reading out of that. But
very clean.
My goal is not weight loss.
No.
I've always been a lean guy, and because I've raised 2 type 1 diabetics, I kind of know a little bit on how to eat. But
I'd say you more than kind of know.
Well, my issue though is inflammation. You
Yeah.
know, as I get older, I hurt more.
Right.
A lot of people that follow my podcast know I have some chronic back problems. So, and I'm very active, and we're all kind of degenerating when we get to my age. So I've always talked about muscle being the currency of aging.
Yeah.
So I want a diet really for myself that is anti-inflammatory, and I want one that builds muscle. We've had some interesting talks on, and you're sending me my own little format of what will help me. I can't wait to talk to you about this again. As a matter of fact, we'll have another session on this after a few months.
Yep.
Rome wasn't built in a day.
Right.
This is going to take a while.
Yeah.
But I do not want my body hurting. I don't want a lot of stiffness. I really want, and I think a lot of it's related to what I put in my mouth as far as foods.
It can be, yeah. Just depends.
So I decided kind of to go on a modified carnivore diet.
Yes.
And I think you've done about every kind of diet. You're also very knowledgeable about peptides.
Oh, yeah.
Guidance with peptides and things like that. So supplementation and all, because you're like a human experiment.
Yeah, to an extent. I like trying things to see
you-
what'll happen.
Have you ever seen that Brian Johnson? Do you know who he is?
I know of him.
He's a longevity
Yeah.
guru. I actually met with him in Washington
really?
for about an hour.
Cool.
I had a meeting with him, private meeting, about 2 months ago. I'll have to tell you about it.
Yeah,
But,
that'd be awesome.
Anyway, he is the most tested human on the planet.
Yeah.
and he kind of overdoes it. He's a little bit odd. I liked him.
The red hair?
No.
I'm thinking of, who am I thinking of?
Brian Johnson is a guy who sold Venmo. So
no, that is him. Okay, I know who you're talking about.
He's a multi-millionaire,
Yes.
and he has a Netflix special.
Yes.
But if you talk to him, he's only about 45 years old.
Yes.
But he does anything.
He works out a
everything.
ton.
He works out
Weighs
a ton,
and measures everything he eats. I know who you're talking about.
Everything.
Fascinating
He takes
guy.
every supplement, uses every red light. I mean, he does it to the extreme. And he tests every day. I asked him, I said, how do you test yourself? Blood, serum? He goes, everything, every which way. He goes, I'm the most tested human on the planet.
Yeah.
But if you look at him, his goal is to live forever.
Yeah.
But if you look at him, when he was in college and high school, he was kind of a fat slob. And now he's cut, lean, trim, energetic. So it is working for him. But in any event, I don't want to do that. But but you kind of reminded me of him in a little bit of ways in your knowledge.
A lot less money, a lot less.
He spends $2.5 million a year on his own personal health, so that's a lot.
I hope he gains several years at least out of that.
Yeah, I think he will.
I think he will.
His motto in his shirt says, "Don't die."
Don't die. All right.
He has a little entourage that follows him around.
Oh, I'm
recording
sure.
Everything.
Yeah.
But he's really. You should watch his whole documentary. But
that's awesome.
In any event, so Lucas was so kind to meet with me today and get me a handcrafted. I mean, we spent an hour and a half talking about my lifestyle, what I ate, what my goals were, because goals are different for different people.
Yes.
And everybody's different in the way their gut handles certain foods and all this. But there are a few truisms that relate to most people, like the types of inflammatory foods that are out there. So you're going to put me on more of a work-in program, and it's going to be a modified carnivore diet, I believe.
Yeah.
So talk to me in general about, why are people so different? The people you see that you handcraft a different plan, kind of, how did you get into this in the first place? What led you to
nutrition and
to
all
nutrition?
That? Well, I got licensure in personal training through National Academy of Sports Medicine. And that was just because I thought I was looking for extra work on the side, and I like to exercise. And though I may not look jacked or anything like that, but
you do look jacked.
Oh well, I'm working on it, hopefully. But I've always liked to exercise. So be it calisthenics, that's where I kind of started. Was no equipment kind of stuff, pull-ups, push-ups, that kind of deal. Did martial arts, I still do. So that's where I started, and then I thought, well, this stuff is pretty accessible if you just read a little bit. So I thought, I'll get licensed. I can get paid on the side to help people or work on it. It's a good job. I can set my own hours. Well, then to maintain my licensure, I have to do CEU, or continuing education credits, through the National Academy of Sports Medicine. They require this. One of the credits you could get, I was looking for courses to take, and I was like, oh, I can get a second license if I do their nutritional program. So I did the nutritional program. I happened to be in a show with Andy at the time at the theater at JRT, and I'm always experimenting with supplements. That's a side thing. I didn't get that from my licensure. That was like, they talk mostly food, macronutrients, the basics, chemistry, all that business. But I'm always looking for a way to like change how I feel just to see what'll happen. I don't know. I'm just a curious person. So I had some cocktail. It was just some performance boosting cocktail. How well it helped me, I don't know, but I thought it helped me, so I made this thing backstage. And he and I were neighbors in the dressing room. He always saw me mixing stuff in my water, white powders. No, it's citrulline malate, nothing illicit. But I was putting stuff like that, and he goes, what's going on there? And so we just got talking, and I was explaining to him why I was doing it, what research suggests this helps with. And that turned into, why don't you come on the podcast sometime, talk about this? And then that turned into us meeting, like you already gave that. But it's just been an interest for me. I like figuring out ways, or reading about ways that might make me healthier or stronger or look a certain way even. Just different things like that. It's just fascinating to me. The body's very complicated. And so any way we can manipulate it is interesting, without harm, of course.
Well,
there's always a slight inherent risk with experimentation. So
when I see some of the stuff you do at the theater, like jumping, like you can get up without even, I don't know what you call it, but some of the moves you
like
make.
a kip up.
A kip up, yeah, that type.
Could
of
I
thing.
still do? It's been a while since I've tried. That's the ninja get up, where you you're on your back and you flip up onto your feet. I don't know if I still can. It's been a while.
That's pretty.
When
good.
you fail, boy, does it hurt. But yeah, stuff like that, performance boost. The big thing about musical theater, actually, that I was trying to boost was if you have to dance a lot and then sing, you get very winded because you're not able to breathe as often.
Yeah.
So my goal there, the first time I talked to Andy about it, was actually, how can I get a little more oxygen in my blood so I don't need to breathe as often? Was the goal. And I was mixing like citrulline malate and I don't know, a couple other things. Because theoretically, they boost the oxygen uptake.
Methylene blue does it.
Yeah, it's a shame I didn't have it at the time. I use that in theater sometimes still, though.
Yeah.
So I don't know why I made a shame face. There's no shame in that. But yeah, so I've always been fascinated with altering chemistry for a beneficial purpose through food, supplements, things like that. Now, for you, the reason we've discussed modified carnivores, I've actually tried that diet. We call it modified because a true carnivore diet is very strict. I would call it grisly.
Even Saladino doesn't do it anymore.
He doesn't do it anymore. He was the big carnivore guy. One of the number. There's a couple. I don't want to offend the OG carnivore people out there. There's some other good. Sean Baker. He's he's still purist.
Yeah.
But
Ken Berry maybe.
Ken Berry, and he's a purist still. And Anthony Chaffee. He's a neurosurgeon down in Florida, I think. Anyway, but I did the modified because it was far more approachable. And so the modification being from the purist, which is sort of just meat.
Mm-hmm.
Even the purist, most of them avoid dairy, even though it's technically animal-based. It's just meat. And it's pretty strict. Eggs and meat is basically it. The modified allows for certain foods. It's more of an anti-inflammatory. Well, let me say theoretical, right? All this is theoretical. Nutrition research is very complicated. And most of the clinical research, well, I wouldn't even call it clinical research, doesn't exist. It's not good. Most nutritional research is epidemiological, observational, which is sort of like really low-tier scientific research.
With a lot of confounders built in.
There's too many confounders. They're survey-based. Which is self-reporting. I'm not saying people want to lie. They just don't remember or care to remember what they actually ate. You don't really know the circumstances that they're living in when they give you the answers they're giving. A lot of people have shame about what they eat, and they don't want to admit what they eat. These are all confounders just at the basic level on the telephone.
Yeah, you've had a few studies where they actually put them in a hospital.
Yeah, those are better.
Very controlled.
Those are better. They're very expensive too, and they're very challenging to get funding for because there's no end product by which to profit. So I'm not, and that's not a moral condemnation. I'm just saying.
Sure.
I mean, there's no pharmaceuticals. They have a really good incentive to want to study their products. One, they don't want to get sued.
Yeah.
Two, they want to make it past the FDA inspection. And three, ultimately, they need to make money to keep the company going, right? For better or for worse sometimes. So all that to say is there's a high investment in those studies. Whereas with nutrition, it's why do you want me to study that beans are good for my stomach? Why? Who
cares?
Unless it's Goya funding it,
There's
Goya
no money
beans, whatever. It's just not a profitable business. So there are some, like you said, some decent studies out there, and then you have to account for bias. So, and that's tricky. Even in well-funded studies, again, you have to ask: are we serving an agenda, or are we just out to find the truth?
To me,
so it's challenging in nutrition for that.
And really, I learn the most from the patients themselves.
When
you see a lot of patients over time, whether they're battling obesity or inflammation or whatever, you get a pretty good feel for what works and what doesn't. I've had so many patients tell me that when they got on a carnivore diet, they stopped hurting.
Yeah.
Multiple patients tell me that. Then I've had vegans that told me the same thing. Probably a lot more carnivore than vegans. But and if you look at somebody, you can almost tell what kind of diet they're on if you look closely enough.
Sometimes,
by their muscles for one thing. I mean, to me, like I was telling you earlier, muscle is the currency of aging. So you want to, as you get older, you want to build muscle. But saying all that, there's a lot of myths in nutrition.
Oh, yeah.
As a matter of fact, most of nutrition is built on pure lies. Like, you need to get on a low-fat diet. That was the first thing that was, and it goes all the way back to Ansel Keys, faulty 7-country study.
Yeah.
So that was faulty. Actually, it's better to eat higher fat. At one point, they would just add carbohydrates and sugar to your diet because it was low fat. So that was totally wrong that we know. But and then there's always a controversy about, like, you get Dr. Gundry or somebody like that. Should you eat, should you not eat vegetables? You know? And what about fiber and that type of thing? So, there's a lot of things that are really based on faulty research that's, they've kind of been bought out by maybe the cereal companies. That you need all this fiber. They're grain-based foods, things like that. That's right. And then you need more whole grains, which is another, to me, mistake in telling people that. Yeah.
It depends. Yeah, well, a whole grain, I would say it can be beneficial. I guess it depends on what you're comparing it to. What is it compared to? And a true whole grain is really hard to get. Like a true good whole grain. You'd say, well, I get some Quaker's oats down there. Well, Quaker has a lot of products. Quaker's a huge long list of products. And you mean like the Quaker instant oats, where they've smashed the grain, sieved it, and then they've pre-cooked it for you to cook out a lot of the nutrients.
Or Dave's Killer Bread.
Yeah, and then they've given you it's not a whole grain. In fact, they say it's whole grain. It's not, though, because you've gotten rid of all the nasty taste and stuff, which is part of the grain. Actually, if you want a legitimately true whole grain, you have to buy what's called groats, which is the entire kernel of the oat. Mm-hmm. It's oatmeal, but it's the entire kernel. And in order to cook them to where they're edible, you'd have to soak them and cook them for several hours in either a pressure cooker or boiling water for an enormous amount of time, because they're protected particles. They've not been the outer shell hasn't been broken by a mill or a grinder yet. I've tried them before. They actually taste pretty good. I tried them plain because I'm like, what do these taste like plain? They have a very nice, oat has a nice taste. There's a nice, of course I associate it with fall because I think of oats and warmth and fall food, cinnamon. But no, there's a nice grainy taste in a groat. Now, I did have incredibly horrible gas and bloating after I ate them. My stomach didn't appreciate the mass dose of fiber I was getting all at once. I probably ate too much, to be honest. So I'm not completely, I'm not like anti-whole grain. I just think they're oversold. I think they're overhyped and oversold. People think, I'm going to eat my oatmeal every morning and I'm great. I'm like, well, first of all, oatmeal by itself is probably not what people are eating. They're probably eating instant oatmeal that has brown sugar and seeds and stuff added. I shouldn't say they are legitimately seeds, but again, people think if I have seeds in it, it's good for me. That's all a way to disguise sugar and crap. Mm-hmm. Mostly sugar. It's just they're all disguises for sugar, most of them. And so oats have enough carbs in them as it is. It's a resistant carb, so it's not going to spike your blood sugar horribly. Mm-hmm. But when you put brown sugar all up in it, you've just undone the glycemically friendly aspect of oats in the first place, which is that slow digesting carb that that they recommend for diabetics and things like that.
Sure.
So that's my beef with the grains, is they're packed in things and falsely marketed as healthy when really it's just junk food. It's just and you can eat so much more of it, right?
Yeah.
Because
it doesn't fill you up.
No, because there's no water in it. So that's the thing. It's like when you eat a piece of fruit, it's chucked full of water. And so, like, if I sat down and I ate a cereal bowl's worth of blueberries, like a packed cereal bowl, that's not actually that many calories, I mean, there's some sugar in there. Yeah. Antioxidants, though, some small amount of fiber. But it's mostly water. There's a lot of water. So I'm going to get full fast. I'm not going to be able to eat probably much more than that. But I could sit down and eat an entire cereal bowl of cereal. Now, you add liquid to it, But the calorie density of that cereal, it's probably been baked. It's probably got a lot of oil in it to make the calories go up, makes it texturally tasty, so it doesn't burn when they're toasting it. And they put some oil on there. So there's all these reasons why these grain-based, super tasty, like delicious foods are really easy to overdo. They have no water in them. Most of them are devoid of fiber, which fiber can be filling. And so they're easy to, your stomach literally has, a limited amount of space in it, though we can stretch it. If we're determined, we can stretch it. And so I think part of it is just the bulk of the food too. Really high calorie, but low bulk. And so you can fit so much more of it.
Yep.
Whereas if you're eating like fresh whole foods, which we encourage people to do, you just physically can't put as much in you, not at once. And so I think that's a big aspect that people forget about is the water content of food. It's another factor. It's awesome. Water's great.
A lot of people get constipated, and fiber, they say, well, take more fiber. But that study you told me about, that was a very controlled study.
In the UK, yeah. About 10 years ago, I guess. I could be a little fudgy on the date.
What was the gist of that study?
The study was to determine, I think the bias for the researchers was to prove fiber's efficacy in solving constipation. I think that was the stated bias. It was a double-blind study. They had 3 groups, roughly the same age, roughly the same health markers, but all had constipation without known cause. Okay, so they didn't know the cause. One group, they didn't change anything, of course. That's your control group. They had one group who they drastically increased fiber, and then they had another group who they gave them an almost zero fiber diet. And the only people in the study to see an improvement were the zero fiber people. So it confounded the initial expectations. Some of them had a very dramatic improvement in their symptoms. No, this was a specific...
No fiber. Yeah.
No fiber, yeah. The people with extra fiber had an increased problem. Their constipation became worse. Symptoms became more severe.
Bloated.
Yeah, bloating. And now, this was, of course, a specific case of no known cause constipation. So that's a very specific problem, a problem that I've actually dealt with myself. So I was very interested in figuring out why that worked. And so that brings me, so modified carnivore, if we're talking, I've tried that diet because I had a health scare with an appendix and my intestines were all messed up from inflammation and infection and all this.
Ileus.
So yeah, ileus in the hospital, which is bowel paralysis from my understanding. Is that correct?
Yep.
So it's just temporary, like
post-op.
You can't move, your bowels won't move, food is agony. That's what happened. And so I was like, well, I've got to figure out a diet, like any vegetable with a high content of cellulose fiber would just light me up like a Christmas tree. It was awful. The pain, beans, lectin stuff, all that stuff was tearing me to pieces. And I also couldn't go to the bathroom without stimulant laxatives. It was just I was just taking them all the time. Or magnesium citrate purges, just way too much magnesium citrate to liquefy everything. So I was trying to figure out a diet I could try. Now, fruit has fiber in it. Fruit does have fiber.
Yeah.
But I stumbled on this theory. It's a theory, okay? I want to be careful when I say that. It's a theory, meaning we don't have conclusive 100% evidence. But like you said, I don't discount personal anecdotal conversations. If it works, it works. Like, I'm not overly concerned with the why is important, but if you have 8 people you've spoken to and they've all tried this one thing, they all have 8 different issues and they all see an improvement. I'm like, that's progress in a way. Yep. So I tried it out. The theory is that fruits, this is the theory behind the people who advocate for this diet or came up with the diet. Fruits, at least, are designed by the plant to be consumed because that's how fruiting plants carry the seed in the tasty part, the sugar part, and it's either alluring to animals via color, taste, smell, or all the above. What happens is the fruit either drops to the ground and immediately the seed goes into the ground with the glucose and the breakdown and sort of the rotting of the fruit as sort of fertilizer. Or better yet, it's taken by insects or animals, and the seeds are protected from digestion because they're fibrous, harmlessly passing through the digestive system of that animal far away from wherever that fruit was. That comes out in the feces of the animal. That's built-in fertilizer for this seed, and then the fruit has reproduced. So that's sort of the the life cycle. It doesn't apply to every fruit, but most of them, that's sort of an oversimplified. So the theory is, well, golly gee, the apple tree designed this apple for me to eat, and it drops it for me so I can eat it because it's tasty. I'm helping the apple tree by spreading it, reproducing it. It also is a deterrent from me eating the apple tree, which most animals, the tree is protected by bark and all kinds of stuff. If I went up and I broke a branch off an apple tree and I chewed it up, first of all, I'd probably cut my mouth to pieces. But if I could survive that, I would imagine that my stomach would not like that very much. I'd probably get sick, get diarrhea, get cramping, all this stuff. It's just no different than if I went out and I ate 5 handfuls of green grass. Good luck digesting that. It takes cows several chambers and multiple. They vomit up, chew,
Rumination.
and they put it back, and then they ruminate, and it takes a long time for a cow. We don't have half those chambers, so we're not going to be able to digest grass. And we'll get very sick. We'll get diarrhea and all this stuff. So the premise is the fruit's been designed, unlike a vegetable, to be eaten. Okay? There's not a lot of defense chemicals. You'll hear that in the carnivore community. Defense chemicals. They're trying to kill you.
Lectins, right?
Lectins, trace amounts of poisons, the organic poison. I always mix up arsenic and... what's the other one? Cyanide. One's inorganic, one's organic. One of those is naturally found in most plants in very microscopic amounts, like tiny amounts. But the theory is we don't need to be eating that. There's more of that sort of resistant starches, resistant fibers, harmful fibers. I put quotes because this is all theoretical. I like to be as honest as I can. In vegetables. So... eating to a carnivore or modified carnivore, eating broccoli would be like me going up to an apple tree and eating the branch instead of the apple, right? The broccoli is the plant itself. It doesn't have a fruit. When you eat broccoli, you're killing it. Yep. Now, I'm not advocating for ethics for plants. I don't care about the feelings of broccoli. Okay, I eat steamed broccoli sometimes. I'm just giving you sort of the premise of what the prevailing theory behind the modified carnivore diet is, which is vegetables, you're eating the plant itself. It does not want to be eaten. So instead of fighting you like an animal might or running away, it can't. What does it do? It produces all kinds of irritating toxins to deter itself from being eaten. You will notice grass isn't really eaten by insects. There may be ants. Ants can do it. Takes a lot of work, a lot of pincering, right? But ants are going to go for other stuff before they go for grass. They're going for sugar, things like that. And the few animals that eat the grazing animals, the ruminant animals, they're called ruminant animals because they have long digestive tracts. Even gorillas, I hear this from people who don't like the carnivore style. They'll say, well, look at gorillas. Or vegan advocates will say, you don't need meat or dairy for muscle. You can get it solely from plants because look at gorillas. They're one of the most muscled animals on the planet. There's a lack of knowledge there about the digestive system that people are missing. Gorillas, if you look at them, it looks like they have a pot belly a little bit. It's because they have a lot more feet of intestine than humans do. They are different than us. They have an enormous amount compared to us. I think something like 20-something feet more, maybe, of intestine in their stomach or below their stomach. And what that allows them to do is digest greens longer than we can. The longer the digestive tract, the more time you have for the bacteria in there to break down what you're eating. Mm-hmm. They also have a strain of bacteria, the name escapes me, that we do not have. That strain of bacteria consumes the greens that they're eating because they eat a lot of grass and leaves. That's their primary diet. Some bugs, but mostly greens. That bacteria transforms the amino acids in the plants into bioavailable animal amino acids and slow drips it through their small intestine into their body. That is why gorillas are gigantically muscled. They also eat like 14 hours out of the day, constantly. I don't have the time to be doing that, so I'm not going to do that. They eat. That's what most animals, that's what they obsess over is how do I have babies and how do I eat? That's it. That's their calendar. Yep. Oh, and some sleep in there. Yeah, sleep. But 14 hours a day, they are nonstop eating.
That's interesting.
Grabbing branches.
On places or they're using
they get a little light. They get some exercise in there. They play a little bit. But that muscle comes from a very different system than we possess. I'm not an anti-vegan, though I think veganism is oversold. My issue with veganism is that's the one diet I've not tried. So, don't knock it till you try it. Maybe one day I'll try it and report back to you. I think veganism can be done semi-successfully.
It's a little harder.
The challenge with veganism is getting certain essential minerals that are not bioavailable in plant form, which would be the Bs, most of the Bs. Iron is doable, though. Just heme iron is in meat. You gotta supplement. You can get some iron in greens and things like that, but the majority of it's bound up in what's called, now that I want to say it, not lectins, it's a similar, oxalates. Oxalates are found in high concentrations in a lot of iron-bearing plants.
Yep.
And oxalates bind to minerals and prevent you absorbing them.
Yeah. We've done a podcast on oxalates.
Yeah, oxalates, and some people tolerate oxalates just fine. I'm not a dogmatic nutrition guy, meaning there's not one way or the highway. I don't believe that. I think you have to be. This is why my appointments take a long time. Yeah. Because I want to know everything you're eating, and I'll be like, are you sure about how much you put of that in your coffee? How much creamer? What kind of creamer? What brand is it? I want to know all of it. And so we kind of comb through everything. Veganism, I think I've seen some successful vegan bodybuilders. I have, and they look great. I don't know if they use performance enhancers. I'm not going to call into credibility without evidence. Some of them, their musculature looks like they use.
A little suspicious. But
some of them, no. Some of them, they look great.
Yeah.
They look natural. They look reasonable.
Not many.
I'm not going to dog them. They are proof, though, that there are exceptions and you can successfully eat a vegan diet. But even they would say, well, you got to supplement B12. I'm like, well, then maybe it's not a complete diet. Because technically there are diets that meet all of your nutritional needs without supplements. Now, we take supplements just to cover the bases. Like magnesium is tough to get in your diet. You can. But I like to take magnesium if I can. A modified carnivore technically will cover all your bases.
Especially if you're eating beef liver, grass-fed beef liver.
Yeah, in fact, that's so nutrient-dense, you have to control how much you eat. Because if you eat more than a serving every couple of days, you can have vitamin A toxicity. You don't want to deal with that. And zinc toxicity, too, other things like that. Yeah, I can't bring myself to eat beef liver. I can't do it. I tried pure carnivore diet this January, I think. I chickened out, partially because I underestimated the adaptation side effects, which are perfectly normal, and I'd read about them. I just didn't want to deal with them. I'm just like, I don't want to do this. I don't need to do this. I don't have like inflammatory conditions or anything. I'm not desperate. But if I were desperate, if I had rheumatoid arthritis and I couldn't walk or, and I'm just in agony, I would try anything, of course. And those are the people that you find will try it and report, I'm off my meds. Never going back.
I've heard some great stories.
And I'm not going to argue with them. I mean, if you're off your meds and your joints don't hurt and you're functioning normally, like, what am I going to argue? Like,
how can you argue?
I'm not going to trash your diet. As long as you don't have cardiac, your calcium scores terrible or something crazy like that. That's, of course, something you want to look at. But
vitamin C.
Yeah. Which luckily you can get in trace amounts from organs. But that's another deal. But the modified's much easier. You're eating fruit. So I've spent a long time, with that theory of fruits are less inflammatory because the plant intends it so. Now, the purists out there would go, no, there's still compounds in there, and it's not ketogenic, so you're going to get diabetes. Well, you're an active guy. You told me I do a little intake questionnaire. You're working out around 6 hours a week, right?
At least, yeah.
As long as we're metabolically healthy, I think carbs are just fine, especially if you're active. Because listen, I've done a ketogenic diet. I lived in it for like a year or two. I did it a long time. I loved it for different reasons. But there is nothing like the difference that I experience in the gym from a keto diet for lifting weights to a non-keto diet. Is substantial. The performance boosts I get from carbohydrates versus non is, for me, was substantial. It's very noticeable. Now, you will adapt to a ketogenic diet and get far better in the gym. That first month is just terrible. You will get better, but I still never quite had the burst strength I could get because you just can't access your glycogen stores are empty.
Yeah.
And fat is perfectly adequate. Ketones are perfectly adequate as fuel, but if you're wanting to feel great while you work out, some fruit's really going to be your friend, in my opinion.
That's why Salandino went to it. And Dr. Peter Attia, I think he was keto for like 4 years.
Yeah. Now, Saladino, I've watched him in some interviews. The primary reason he advocates is he thinks, in theory, that we do need to expose ourselves to some sugar variants every now and then so our body metabolically still understands how to do it. Right. Sort of like working a muscle.
Right.
I think I don't want to put words in the man's mouth. He will explain it far differently than I am better. But my summary, if I had to like steel man his argument, would be, which is like reflected in an honest way, would be you need to stimulate that function in your body. Use it or lose it is kind of the premise. And if you go so long without ever stimulating a tolerance for sugar intake, what are the consequences there? Yeah. So the purist would say, well, who cares? I don't need it. Like, I don't need sugar. I'm functioning. And that, hey, to each his own. But for you, I think because you're so active, I think you're going to feel better generally because you're wanting to build muscle, which brings me to what we were talking about, hypertrophy.
Yeah. Talk about the different forms of. So to sum that up, you don't really necessarily need to eat your veggies. That's exactly
you
right.
don't. That needing to eat your veggies is an oversimplification. Now, I think that's fine advice for general health because it's all about what people are actually going to do. If I say eat some veggies, that's far better advice than
Go to McDonald's. Yeah.
Right, because by eating vegetables, they're going to gravitate towards whole foods.
Yeah.
Right? As long as you discern between, technically ketchup, that's fruit, it's tomato, that doesn't count. Like whole vegetables are far superior, despite the theories about fiber and inflammation, all that. It's still far superior to junk,
for sure.
Hyper-processed junk food like crackers,
right,
which offer virtually
highly processed foods.
Yeah,
Terrible.
and the problem with we talked about was the matter factor. There's so many calories in hyper-processed foods, and they taste amazing. And so you have a high incentive to eat vast amounts of them. Most of them are devoid of water. They're devoid of fiber and bulk. So you can eat double and not be full. Yeah. And you're eating, triple the calories.
Yeah.
So that's my problem with them. The science about them being inflammatory, this and that, sure, there's probably a lot of truth to that. I don't even have to get to that. Like, I don't even have to engage with that science because the real problem I have is they make you so fat that, of course, you're inflamed.
Yeah.
Like, forget the inflammatory problems. But that, to me, is a secondary monster compared to you're eating 5,000 calories a day.
Yeah.
Like, that's insane unless
that's
you're
exactly right.
a pro bodybuilder who needs 8,000.